Welcome back, everyone. Here in Trade Ropa, we are... Oh, that's right, I'm still here. Ah! I want to go back. Okay, so last time, I left on a mining trip, I got some stuff done, and I think... Nope. Get your butt over there. I believe a storm is going to come soon, and at this point, the thing is working. I got a few things that I want to do, but it's gonna take a little bit of time for that to happen, to be honest. What I want this to be is a showing of how the system is gonna struggle, and I will be honest that the system is going to struggle.
Oxygen low.
Everything is on. Okay, good. I need to swap that battery out too. And it doesn't say that it's gonna storm yet, but I believe this is day 15? Did it say day 15? Nope, it just says, who knows how long you lived. And if this is hopefully gonna turn yellow, but it's gonna turn yellow or something soon, and so I actually do need to expect... What are you doing here? So this is gonna... I do need to expand some stuff, and so this is planned for me to be doing a build montage. And quite honestly, that's not really what I wanted to show off with this. But at the same point, I have a lot of thoughts regarding my system. And so while I speed up the build montage, I will kind of explain this. But before I set off, the reason it's going to struggle is this is a lot of temp, a lot of CO2, and that has a really high specific heat. If I remember doing the math right, it would take, I think it was about 5 million, 9 million joules. Anyways, build montage, I'll go on ahead and explain that. And this system currently cannot handle it. It needs to be massively updated, upgraded, and everything. But this backbone for this phase change system can handle it with some minor modifications, and particularly to that storage phase. Alright, so this is going to be my marker for my build montage, as I basically will expand my power a little bit, my storage, hopefully get some programming done. Alright, so here's my marker, and take it away. Hello everyone, this is Future Shadow Drake, and I will be talking over this build montage, which is actually kind of a tough part because I have literally 30 minutes of this build montage to talk over. So yeah, anyways, let me just kind of share my thoughts, because I kind of have like a view for looking behind of what happened. Can do it with a clear head, because I can't really do that in Venus very well. And I'll share my thoughts on that as well. So, yeah, like I said, this is a 30-minute build montage. If this is not your thing, you don't want to hear this too much, or hear a lot of the mathy details, because I go over a lot of the math that I can go back over for how I thought that this would be possible, you can either skip over to the conclusion, or I guess you can skip to where I do a stress test video, because I did want to stress test the system with a room filled with hot Venusian gas, and admittedly I expected that the system will fail spectacularly. It did fail, and I had to use kind of other game bugs, exploits, I guess however you want to call it or feel about it, to keep it running. But yeah. I will mention that I will be also talking about previous Stationair's AC video done by Elmotrix, if I said that right. Apologize if I didn't. Where he made a video a long while back about how to talk about using the atmospheric AC units and how they work. And it was a very good watch. It actually was part of the reason why I kind of wanted to make this video. In particular because the system he came up with was very, very efficient for what it does. And unfortunately, that kind of seems to be the barometer for how to judge any existing system. And yeah, that kind of leads to kind of like still growth or the inability to grow sometimes, unless somebody just massively limits themselves in some way, just like this. So, alright, let's get into this. So, first thing, let me talk about Venus. I, you probably heard me complaining quite a bit, and to be honest, I don't particularly like Venus that much. Uh, Now, I will say that it is a very good planet. The difficulty is there. The devs have made a good job of making it a very difficult and hostile planet. It's hot, it's pressurized, the atmosphere composition leaves much to be desired. I mean, it is purely CO2, which is helpful for plants, but that is a very hot thing. You can't. It's very very intensive to cool a room cell of Venusian atmosphere as it is. It almost leads better that unless you have a hyper high productive system, you're not going to cool it very fast. You almost want to do it in spurts, and it is tough because of that. But I mean, honestly, the only reason I really kind of don't like it is that the yellow hue. I don't know why. I just don't really like the hue, and so it doesn't jive for me much. And that's just kind of the things. But I mean, the positives is it is a difficult planet. It is a very difficult planet. And I did take this in the most restrictive way possible, in that I also worried about hygiene, which by all means I am not recommending that you actually adhere to it. It's just an extra challenge. The so far the debuff modifiers as of this video are not that bad. It's just a minor food penalty and tool usage penalty. You can completely ignore it, and in fact, it is probably going to be ignored. But in the spirit of trying to make the whole game livable, I adhere to it. And that, honestly, is a very stressful thing, because if you're managing oxygen, food, water, and how stanky you are, there's a lot of dead time, and Venus is already very unforgiving. Uh, you almost really, really need to know what you're doing and be very experienced in the system. And definitely not doing it on Stationeer's difficulty, because that just makes all of the limits harder. And because of that, it's kind of like a Dark Souls level difficulty. And I enjoy challenges. Those are fun. They're difficult. And there's a lot of satisfaction from overcoming them. But the stress of the whole planet is very high. You can't really lose too much time. You gotta know what you're doing. And honestly, making a video while doing this at the whole time, just very hard, very stressful. My adrenaline was up. I took frequent breaks so that I could kind of just calm down and have a mental breather. And there's, not a problem with that. It's just a tough planet. It doesn't really work well with me. But, again, nothing wrong with it. It's just not my cup of tea. So, let me go into the motivations for this face change only. So, again, part of the reason was that the atmospheric ACs had a way to be really, really efficient, and because of that, there's not really very many systems we could create that could output the same level of productivity for the power usage they have, and basically feel worthwhile. And on a personal note, I typically made my atmospheric heating and cooling setups to be power efficient in the sense that I want to use as little power as possible. And because of that, I sacrifice a lot of throughput or the capabilities for the system to cool and heat, and sometimes sacrifice a lot of materials. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that the systems that I design are meant to be a very gradual process that keeps itself going. And so one things you will see in the stress test is because the systems I tend to make are for a gradual process, you're going to see it fail when I put stress test it. And I go in knowing that it will fail. But yeah. So because I look towards getting using as little power as possible, I predominantly use the atmospherics. Nah, I don't use those that much. Sorry, I predominantly use the phase change devices. Excuse me, because they have a lot of benefits for what they are. The fact that they only cost 50 watts of power, fairly easily made and fairly easily configurable, and have a little bit more voodoo magic than just purge valves and pressure valves and expansion valves and condensation valves. You can get quite a bit out of them for that 50 watt price tag. In fact, with the simple phase change heat pump video I made, the system itself only costs 100 watts of continuous power. That's an extremely cheap system that can be configured to provide some level of moving thermal energy. And so one of the things that bugged me was that Venus did not really have a good way to do that. The common thought is that no matter what, we will need atmospheric ACs to get the system to work. So I kind of shied away from that challenge for a bit because well, at the time I didn't know what I did now. And the limits of phase change are also make it hard to work. It was going to be a challenge for sure. I knew that going in. That's why I gave myself a little bit of an out with the portable AC, because we start with that. And avoiding the atmospheric AC was just a way to make sure that I don't cheat myself into trying to find alternate solutions. And there are alternate solutions, but I also tried not to do those because I wanted to stick within the spirit of making what we have existing work. So, no atmospheric ACs. That is tough. So, let me talk a little bit about the atmospheric ACs and phase change. For what it's worth, atmospheric ACs use up to 360 watts maximum, I believe. And they can move about 14,000 joules of energy, so 14 kilojoules. However, how much energy they move is based on the three efficiencies it has. It has an operational efficiency, which is determined by the temperature range that you are working in for that. It has a temperature differential efficiency, which is based on the input and the waste. And of course, a pressure differential. No, it's a pressure efficiency, which means you need at least 100 kilopascals worth of pressure in both input and waste pipe. You start sacrificing any of those, you start moving much less. But that being said, 14 kilojoules of thermal energy is a lot. You have to have some very customized phase change related systems to work. And because I predominantly use phase change devices, and I try to use those because they're easier to follow and to show what's happening, there is a lot of throughput that is sacrificed. And, you know, once again, I could probably try to do better systems, but, you know, I opted for the phase change devices, particularly because they are a baseline. They are something that is kind of a constant and easy to see, troubleshoot, debug, and provides essentially the lowest power usage for some level of thermal energy movement. So I opted for that. But that comes with the power tag. So the biggest effectiveness of this is the fact that of such a low power cost. If we're talking about a typical atmospheric AC solution from back then, you would need at least 8 atmospheric ACs in order to step down from Venusian temperatures down to basically livable. And 8 atmospheric ACs, if they run at 360 watts, that's 2,880 watts. So, let's round it 2,900 watts of power that they use, presumably per tick. It is a lot of power to move maybe 6,000, 5,000 to 6,000 joules. Uh, when they're operating in Venusian temperatures, they're at 36% efficiency. In the storm, it's 44%. But admittedly, as they step down in the temperature, their operational efficiency goes up. And so now, really, you're just battling the pressure and the temperature differential. But still, that is a lot of power. That's something that, you know, that I would want to actually minimize. So I had to take a step back and see how to actually make a two-step phase change system work. So at minimum, that's 2 sets of phase change devices. So that puts me already at 200 watts. But then the problem comes in that Venusian atmosphere is so high, there is nothing that can condense at that upper temp. And the only thing that could do that would be water. But that caps out at 370 Celsius. And now Venusian storms get down to 365 at the lowest. And so that kind of opens up an interesting thought. That's where this whole thing came from. 365 is already pretty high up there. It's wildly inefficient, probably not even very helpful or anything. But taking a look at it, that's where that's where we that's my upper limit. Whoops, I stepped into atmospherics. Back to the power. So 200 watts. So I would need to know when a storm is happening, which means I would need the weather station. I believe that idles at 10 watts, so that's at 210 watts. Throughout my trials, I realized that I had more water than I needed to in the system, so I opted for having a second condensation chamber. So that's adding an extra 50, so I'm at 260 watts. And then, of course, I would need an IC10 to control basically vents, to handle vents during a storm. That's another 50. So I'm at 310 watts of what theoretically would work out to have a constant cooling system. And that's kind of where now power savings, that's very cheap. I would think worthwhile, something to pursue. The question is, did it work? Um, the way I looked at it in power, uh, there's about a 7 to 8 day cooldown before the next storm comes. So if the system could last between essentially storm to storm and still be effective, I would consider that a win. Power, of course, was going to be really easy. I did the math. For that low of a power, I would just need 2 small station batteries or 1 large station battery and 2 wind turbines to refill them up, and basically, essentially, the system could run indefinitely at that point. There's nothing big that would stop it. And for the power standpoint, it's kind of huge. That's a big savings, in my opinion. Something that is worth considering and having for. That you only need to build 2 small station batteries, 2 wind turbines, and this system is just effective and running. So, with that in mind came, does it work? And this is where I had to do a lot of the math. The composition of the Venusian atmosphere gave me roughly 27.67 specific heat. Having a 5-degree difference means 1 Venusian mole, and that's its entire composition split up. 1 mole of Venusian atmosphere. That's only 138 joules of thermal energy. So that's not a lot to work with. So I had to kind of check and see how much power vents will work and active vents. And it looked like a power vent, the small one, gave me about 15,000 roughly. 15,000 Venusian moles. And the large power vent gave me basically double that. And so looking at the small vents, that's about 2,075,000 joules of thermal energy I can push into it before the system can no longer work. And this is as far as water goes, because keep in mind that it's a two-step system. So, so long as the water keeps the intermediary, the line between the nitrous pump and the water pump, so long as that's below temperature, it can keep pumping. And having extra liquid water in the evaporator will basically keep evaporating. You know, the biggest problem with that is, of course, that I'm gonna have gas pooling in the gas lines between the two once I exhaust this. So one large event basically doubles that, so 4,150,000 joules. And that's kind of the tough part with this. I think on the upper end I was seeing the condensation chamber dumping about 2,500 joules when it maxed out at basically storm temperatures per tick. Now I know that's not perfect, but so a large power vent would only realistically last. Let me do the math here. Let's see. If I did that divided by 2. So that's 830 seconds before it's exhausted. That's not a lot of time. Change that to minutes, that's 13, 14 minutes. That's not even a day. So that already tells me that, if I need it to last, a system to be able to handle 2,500 constant joules of thermal energy being pushed, I would need to have at least what? I forgot to do. I should have done that math. Excuse me. Let's see, equals 8 divided by that. So I would need at least probably 11, 12 large power vents. So realistically speaking, that's a lot of power vents. And this is kind of where the system kind of breaks down a little bit. It's less of a matter of will it work, it's just a matter of how much you want to sink into materials. And then keep in mind that having this many power vents also affects how many wind turbines you would need. At this case, that's small enough that I won't need any extras. 2 is still enough to keep the system going indefinitely. But the fact that I would need 12 of them, that's pretty big. That's a big footprint size. A lot of materials, a lot of things to go with it. So it's a lot of work. And so then the alternative thing that is tech that you can use within the game's work is to buy the pollutants from the gas trader. Well, I say buy in the sense that it's more like they're paying you to take them off your hands. And as you saw in this run, this trader was selling me 35 units worth of it. Now, 100 moles of that gives that I push into that tank is already 1,100,000 roughly joules of thermal energy I can push in. So that's basically a fourth of a large powered vent. If I bought all 35 of those, then that gives me quite a huge capacity. I mapped it out to roughly about 38,750,000 joules, which is kind of insane to that. That's a pretty big storage, and it still gets used. And so the system then becomes more of it's dependent on the storm temperature and whether you choose to buy the pollutants and feed it into your gas storage system so that you can expand your thermal reservoir. It's an interesting way to fix it. And then, of course, the only other way of fixing it that I could think of, ironically enough, is to put atmospheric ACs to cool it down. During a storm only, of course. Because if you use those during a storm, it's a negligible power usage. And I think doing the math for the storm parameters, it would remove about 6,000 joules during a storm. Per tick, of course. Presuming that, of course, a storm lasts for only 300 seconds for 5 minutes, you know, that's basically, unfortunately, in the long run, that's worse than one large power event. And so it became an interesting thought experiment that, yeah, you can add large power events and atmospheric ACs to expand the operating thermal range, or the maximum amount of thermal energy that can move. And so this is kind of where I get to the big cons of this. Looking at this, it'll work, it can work, but you have to sink so many materials to get this to work. Without a doubt, the power investment that you need for this is very small. But then, are you capable of really affording to mine all of these materials, build all this stuff, when you have much more other things to work with? That's kind of the big drawback of this system. So I did this focusing on this completely, and as you can see, I've ignored a lot of things. I kept the gas trader hostage just to get the system set up as soon as possible, and quite honestly, not really very worth it for that. If I had just used 2 atmospheric ACs to get me down to a baseline level so that this works, that probably would have been a lot less stressful as far as getting this up and running. And I'm not even going to talk about the fact that the configuration of ACs that moves so much more thermal energy is already something that's extremely difficult to beat. So then, what about other tricks? So compared to the 8-stepping atmospheric ACs, it's got it beat in power. But again, the throughput is really, really low for this system. Personally, I think that you could make it work if you don't see if you use the trick where you just basically run solder infinitely through a furnace, because that will keep cooling the furnace. It'll provide a much lower temperature threshold. You can then just use pollutants or nitrous, and the furnace itself will probably keep cooling it down and keep it operating, again, almost indefinitely. So it depends on your definition of whether that's an exploit or not. And of course, the configuration where the hyper-efficient configuration, which personally I don't really have much of a problem with right now. But that configuration, and refer to almost video to see it for yourself, is so efficient at moving energy around that it's really hard to find any other or make any other system that's better than it. It really is, because when a system can move, let's see, it's 2 of them, so what, 5,000, roughly 5,000 joules. So yeah, when it can move like what, 14,000-ish joules of thermal energy constantly, that's extremely hard to beat. It really is extremely hard to beat. It takes out the main challenge of Venus, of you know, the heat in Venus, and it makes it a lot more manageable. And so that's why it's really hard to find a replacement system. But yeah, so that is my thoughts on the matter. So I guess to conclude this, so this will be the conclusion. I think this system can work, but I think it's gonna be something that can work alongside of it. You would need another system that can handle moving a big rush of thermal energy to work alongside it. Because this can kind of work in the background to keep something steady, it's hopefully stable. So long as you keep an eye on how much thermal capacity is left inside your holding tank. Because while you can use a storm to fill up, and right before a storm happens, you can vent that expended energy out. And you can also use a gas trader to give you some extra energy holding capacity by just, quote, buying their pollutants. Honestly, I don't see anything wrong with that part. I mean, you could also just buy other gases to improve the system, but at that point, you might as well just use the gas you bought. And so, like I said, the system works on a gradual basis. And as you see, at this point, I am filling this room with 100 moles of CO2 per room. This is a 25 block room, so that's a lot of CO2. I intended to fill it with 100 moles of nitrogen, but I got impatient and decided to just build the thing anyways. And immediately the temperature was crashing. And I knew problems were going to happen, so this is kind of what I get off. So yeah. Again, you can build a system, but I probably wouldn't stress out building it. I would get something more reliable that can push or energy faster first, and have this work alongside it. So, yeah. Whoops. Welcome back, everybody. This is Shadow Drake, and yeah. Okay, so hopefully you enjoyed that little spiel, but I completely forgot what I was doing, and accidentally did an oopsie and actually started doing the thing before I was meant to. Okay, so build montage is done. I need to take a shower. Okay. Now that the build montage is done, as you can kind of see, I accidentally filled it a little bit, and I shouldn't have put the thing in there. So I'm trying to get back out there. Where's my...
Oxygen low.
Is it in here? Yes, it is. Don't need that. Don't need that. Alright. Okay, okay. Oh, no. Yeah, that's gonna be a problem right there. Hmm. I think the only way to fix that is to do that. And this kind of shows how tough the stress test is for this. Ugh. Yeah, as you can tell, that has got really, really hot, and... Ugh. I knew something like this was going to happen when I was going to stress test it. Like, I just had a feeling. Because it is really, really hot. Alright, but this is cooling it down, this is cooling that down. Surprisingly, the water is keeping up with it. Thankfully, what little liquids there are actually cooling this down. And this is kind of where the other thing was. I think if I put the pipe, whatchamacallit, the insulated inline tanks here, this probably would be fixing that. Because I'm now getting condensation in here. So before I resume that, let's actually, alright. Let's get some, insulated inline tanks to put it right there, because that is kind of what I go when I remarked about the phase change and the fact that if you don't have something very stable, you could potentially break something. Yeah, that's kind of what I was talking. Oh wow, I'm actually out of. Something was not done too well. Actually, the easiest thing to do would be to just add the extra, Oh, cool. Okay. Alright, so for a stress test on this system, you can clearly see that it does not handle a very hot temperature. So this system is absolutely limited in what it can do in terms of pulling a lot of hot gases. But we kind of saw that it was cooling the room down some. Briefly while I was in there.
Oxygen low.
So it's still fairly hot. That's still blistering hot. And so, let's see what happens when I redo this. So, that's gonna get hot again. Hopefully, the pressure stays down. Because there is a lot of hot CO2 in here. And that hot CO2 is the reason that this is going to struggle, because I'm putting 15 kilojoules of thermal energy in here. This thing doesn't have very many liquids, so it's just not really pulling it out as fast. And you can kind of see here that that temperature is increasing because this temperature is increasing. And so for the most part, me pumping in all of that hot CO2 is probably the problem. I should have let it be gradual. But it kind of helps to prove that while this system works, this at least can be kind of like a greenhouse management thing. And it's just going to take some time. It's just going to take a little bit of time for this to fully and truthfully get the whole thing cooled. So I think what I need to do now is just kind of wait. I think I just kind of really need to wait it out.
Oxygen low.
I could help it along. See, now this is going to be hot. Because I am pushing 3 kilojoules. This is actually taking up quite a bit. But if we look over here, well, we're almost capped out, and that's the problem. You know, by the math, I knew that was going to be a problem. So the best thing that I can do to allow the system kind of like a time... I need an output. There you go. The only thing I can kind of do to allow the whole system to reset itself and kind of have like a fresh new start is if I do this nifty little trick where I tell my gas trader here I'm going to buy these pollutants, so let's just do it slowly. So I bought 10 moles of pollutants. The math I said, I mean that the 1,000 moles cooled it down some. And so what that did is I now have a much stronger capability to push thermal energy in here. And it is a lot. It really is a lot of energy. And so I might as well just keep doing that. Boom. So with this lower temperature, I am now capable of dumping off more of the energy that I am taking in. This will kind of keep struggling and doing what it can, because remember, this one is capped out now because this is getting too hot. And truthfully, I basically did everything that I could. Now, what I want to do, though, I might need some more. Need to get some more coal. Let's get a little bit more coal because I'm surprisingly out of it. Keep in mind that I really expanded that system over there so that it can handle it no problem. But I did not really and truthfully help out those two. So let's see what I can do. That is still hot. That is still doing what it can. Oh, I lost some of those. Oh wait, it's because some of it is inside the whatchamacallit. Wonder if I can do this. The only other thing I can think of to kind of assist that system, and because I did want it to be livable, is to go on ahead, and I don't think I have much. Ugh. I don't have much else, so I'm just kind of scrambling around a little bit, and look, I'm basically almost out of steel and materials and stuff, and the only good thing about that system is that while this is gonna work in its own sense, I haven't really done much else to optimize it, and I've done what I can in regards to Mr. Fancy Pants Trader. Come on, yeah. Okay. I have been recycling the same tools repeatedly. It's quite honestly, it's about what I can do here. And so,
Oxygen low.
it's 277. Okay. And this will eventually take it all down. But I am stressing this system out hard. And see, this is cooling it. This is struggling because I don't have as much liquids. So I can't really cool it. Just about every single liquid evaporated. What I can do, though... Wait a sec. What did I do to that pipe network to get pollutants?
Oxygen low.
That shouldn't have had any pollutants whatsoever. Where did I get those pollutants from? That makes absolutely no sense. I literally just got pollutants from somewhere.
Oxygen low.
It's almost like I busted something. Something tells me that I had a leftover little... Oh boy. So... the good news is I have almost my 100 moles of CO2. And pretty much the only thing that I can do to
Oxygen
kind of
low.
cool down that area... Well, I did it again. I was supposed to,
Oxygen low.
I don't have those backwards, do I? Something strange is going on in here.
Oxygen low.
I basically held that trader for ransom long enough. I think it's time for me to buy the last little bit of oxygen. That will cool down the place a little bit. And just buy 5 of these. And he's finally getting to go home. Alright, so what that is going to do is I didn't really change the amount of energy. I mean, yeah, the temperature's going to go down, but it's going to get split between what is here. And it's going to help with
Hydration critical.
cooling this, because I had to just, you know, there should be 100 moles of oxygen, which is going to be breathable for me when it gets there. But hopefully this whole system will catch up, and I'll have a room that I can go to. I just need to reverse this and get rid of the pollutants that I somehow got in there. Or maybe I'll get my portable scrubber and do that. Might just need to get my portable scrubber and do that, to be honest. Where's my portable scrubber? Let's drink some water. This has been kind of like a weird thing. Yeah, this kind of works.
Oxygen low.
The system can use a lot of improvement, though. Like a heck of a lot of improvement. And it's not that it's bad, per se. It's just that by the very nature of
Air tank critical.
phase change with the storm temps, it's just really hard to get anything good out of it. And so now I'm basically back to the trader RNG, and quite frankly, I'm not really gonna be much of a fan of that. Because now I basically once that is set up, I gotta wait on seeds. And yeah,
Oxygen low.
we all know how traders are, but whapa. Pollutants, just a normal pollutant. And we've kind of seen just how much I've botched a lot of random things, so. You don't need to be on. But yeah. Let's see where we're at here. This is pushing. This is cooling down. This is doing its thing. That's hot. That's hot. What is this one at? 348? Yeah, you can see that buying the 340 the 34,000 moles of pollutants, because they were such a low temperature, significantly helped and improved just how well the system ran overall. I really don't know where these pollutants came from. I'll tell you this, I don't want them to be there was not that many of them. It was just enough to kind of cause a problem. So yeah, I think if I had started small, maybe if I only put like half the room, this would have cooled it down significantly faster, and I wouldn't have had to struggle as much. You know, take it in baby steps, because the main draw of the systems that I go is that they work on a gradual. They really cannot handle a massive load, and as you saw, I way overloaded the system. Like, if I could redo something, I will probably load back to the save before I turn that on. Turn this on, and probably just start, or fill it up with oxygen first. No, fill it up with the, no, that would be kind of crazy, because then I'd roast myself. Start filling it with nitrogen first. Let this cool it down. Let it get its feet wet as far as being affected. Okay. And after that, it would just be a matter of like once I have plants, Because the thing is, all this CO2 here, I put a bunch of really hot CO2, and that's what killed the system really hard, really fast. If I were to just gradually turn this on, just very gradually bring in, like, I think, oh, where's a pipe I can get? Oh boy, nope, not that. There's like no pipes anywhere. Oh, that's a problem. I'm making a mess. You know what? I should just stop making a mess. Now I gotta go clean my pipe. Might as well go ahead and shower.
Oxygen low.
I don't even know what I was trying to prove with that, to be honest. I just know that for this to work better, it just needs a gradual change.
Oxygen low.
Because, yeah, a straight up. And then, you know, I have Astromar right here. This is basically where Trader RNG would be good. You know, if I get an alloy trader, you know, I can sell stuff. If I get money, get a gas trader, I can fill up on water, fill up on gas, you know, and 'cause, truthfully, this this has been difficult, and it has not been too bad. It is day 20, and technically I have a system that can handle all of this. I think if I truly wanted to do something quirky, I could just evaporate all my dirty water in here. How cold are you? Fairly cold. I could attempt to evaporate it in there. Got 2 liters of dirty water, and it's still got 5 liters in there. And so it's just a matter of time, really. I mean, I still have 662 liters of water. You know, I'm not in a deficit of water. I'm not in a deficit of food. I am more or less in a deficit of oxygen. I may have pumped in a lot of oxygen from that trader, but it's, you know, it's not renewable. I need to plant plants. And, as far as things go, you know, I've really screwed up the way that I've handled the furnace. I've lost a lot of time, a lot of materials, I damaged things. You know, it has not been a clean run. But, I mean, it's not like it's not like every run is going to be absolutely clean, you know? So, I mean, you gotta make some mistakes. See, this is already back to 350. Doing the math, I think with the values I did, all the pollutants I bought, it would have been enough to get this back to roughly 360. It's interesting to me that this water is keeping this going. It's keeping that going. This is going, and it is chilling. And I think it's going to take several more in-game days for that to officially get it down. But for the most part, everything is kind of clean and fixed and out of the way. It's just going to take some time. And the only thing I got to show for it is I got tier 2 electronics, tier 2 atmoprint. I've exhausted almost all my Invar. I have very little steel. I could technically upgrade stuff. My furnace is still basically just this. I burned a lot of things. I have 2 station batteries. My landing pad is still a 3x3. So, legitimately, rushing this kind of helped. I don't know. Let's see. As far as my opinion goes on this... Ooh, you don't have much water anymore. Yeah, I can probably... I would overload you if I put the... Actually, I have a 5-liter water canister. I could slap that on there. Because I did want to get that to about 20 liters. I'm gonna way destabilize my system, but let's do this. I mean, I proved that we basically had the that we basically did it. I basically did it. It's not very effective.
Oxygen low.
Alright. Let's see. This is gonna crash quite a bit. Yep. Look at that crash. That's gonna bring the temps down. That'll bring the temps down here. It's gonna make this a little bit more effective. Just by a smidgen. Was debating of just breaking open the wall and seeing what would happen. Really curious how I got the pollutants in here.
Oxygen low.
It's 129 over here and like 131 over here. Is there even anything in that pipe that it's trying to pull in?
Oxygen low.
Oh, yep, that pipe is empty. Means I can reclaim all those pipes now. So what have we learned? Venus is tough. Venus is difficult.
Low.
Venus does not want to be friends with anybody. It definitely doesn't want to be friends with anybody. I might do a follow-up video. I might just tinker around on this save a bit
Oxygen
and
low.
come back once it's has time to cool down. But yeah, I think I'm gonna sign off right here. Although if I'm gonna continue this one, I'm gonna re-enable my traders.
Oxygen low.
And probably do a little bit more for yeah. I'll re-enable my traders and just basically continue. I guess continue on. It's just... Let's see.
Cognition low.
So yeah. My thoughts. For the ability to save the power, I think this system could potentially work. But it's definitely not going to be one of the best or the fastest. And as you saw, I basically overloaded the nitrous, and the only reason it didn't burst was because I finagled around fixing a damaged pipe until it stabilized itself. Uh, a gradual cooling probably would have been better. It wouldn't have been as panicked, and I could have more easily regulated how much to put in. Because when I put 400 Celsius in that pipe, that's the buffer that it can basically buffer out roughly a room's worth. But let's see. I was starting at 460 Celsius, and that was basically the problem, starting at 460 Celsius. 400 moles at basically 16. If I never wanted to get above 60, then it would have had, they have to take, you know, they'll have to split the 40-degree temperature difference, across all those moles. Which means that at most I could have only put maybe 20 moles of CO2 at a time. Then wait till the whole room stabilized, then put another 20, wait, 20, wait, 20, wait, 20. And I think and it would take longer and longer, but the more I had in the room, the better my buffer would have been in there. Because when you have a lot of CO2 in the room, you have a pretty thick temperature buffer. Yeah, the nitrous still needs to pull all of that extra thermal energy out, and it has to do that. And yeah, buying all of those pollutants expanded my uh, temperature range so that it could handle it. But the problem is, it still is slow. The phase, the atmospheric ACs in the very optimal configuration, being capable of moving 16 kilojoules of thermal energy, possibly more, much more than that per tick, is just really hard to beat. It really is extremely hard to beat. The only benefit that this has is that those two turbines, those two station batteries, are basically will keep it going for a pretty long period of time. But I mean, the base is not in itself self-sufficient because I still need to do some work. I still need to solve power so that this crowd chamber doesn't run out of power randomly at a random point. But yeah, this was an interesting experiment. The challenge was fun. In a way, working with this challenge was fun. Trying to keep my hygiene up, oh, that made it harder. Would I do it again? Possibly. Maybe this system would be kind of like a backup. Like there will come a time where I could use the atmospheric ACs to bum rush, get me down to a temperature, and then have this system be a substitute to help keep it that way. And if things go wildly out of hand, I return on the atmospheric ACs. So I'm I'm hoping that this is just basically another tool in your repertoire. So yeah, this has been Shadow Drake. Thank you for joining me on this run, testing things out. Uh, I probably will not really continue this run very much. I've made my opinions clear. Venus is tough. and it's challenging tough. But I personally do not really like it very much. It's hard. It doesn't have anything cool in the sky. That view is just ugly to me. Um, you know, if you like this, I don't fault you. It's fun. Everyone has their own thing. But this is Shadow Drake. Thank you for your time. Thank you for watching, and see you back in Trade Ropa.